The opinions expressed on the following audio program are solely those of the host and the guests. Burner Podcast is an independently produced, not-for-profit show and is not associated with the Burning Man organization or its subsidiaries. The views expressed are not representative of the entire Burning Man community and are presented here for entertainment purposes only. In short, calm the fuck down. It's just a podcast.
Hey, it's episode number 54. It is 179 days till the man burns, as of this recording. So, a Buddhist practice, don't roll your eyes. Buddhist practice tells us to seek detachment, right? Not just detachment from things, but detachment from outcomes, from expectations, detachment from ideas, and when we're not practitioners of Buddhism or Buddhist philosophies or however way it is you live your life, it can come off as kind of aloof when you think about this concept. But that's not what detachment is meant to be. I guess it could be that if you're not balancing it off with a loving, conscious engagement of life and humanity, like if you were just a dickhead that was walking around saying fuck everything, then it would seem aloof. But I've yet to find a place in life where this hasn't been the case. Seeking detachment and not necessarily achieving it. That's the idea. Like every time I've talked to someone, like everyone I've talked someone down from a quote unquote bad trip. Or a more ideal way of phrasing it is a challenging trip, because they're never bad if you learn something from them. Anyway, every time I've talked somebody down from a challenging trip, I'm doing the quoties, I've found that the root cause of their trip turning dark has been a result of their attachment. People will have an attachment to an image they've cultivated, and now they're embarrassed by the fact that they're looking kind of silly in front of people. That's a common one. Or they've attached to the idea that their experience was supposed to be fun. Fun, so much fun. I took this drug so I can have fun. And maybe it wasn't so much fun. So they go down this like dark rabbit hole. We get attached to many things. I, for example, am now in sort of like the best shape of my life, and I'm finding myself feeling an attachment to my passing youth, a thing that I never really paid any sort of attention to in the past. And it's not like a black and white thing. You become aware of the attachment and then you work to release it with compassion for yourself. Anyway, this subject came to my mind today because if you're an active member of the community and you're on Facebook, you're probably noticing all the people that are posting that they've secured their tickets home. Burning Man's direct group sales are, as of this date, open for the next few days. And if you're not familiar with what that is, Burning Man works pretty hard to make sure the most active contributors and Black Rock City participants are taken care of before open ticket sales are unleashed on the unsuspecting world. And the group direct sales are aimed at people who have built big art in the past. We get like this direct thing, like leaders of previous art projects will get an email that says, hey, if you want to get tickets out to your crew, this is how you get it. So for obvious reasons, right? Because the artists who are building shit are kind of what make Burning Man. So BM.org wants to make sure that the builders and the artists are there to build and art. So anyway, I have lots of friends posting that their tickets have been secured, camp leads, artist teams, etc. And I've been involved in some sort of a build project every year, and I've attended, so I've never experienced having to purchase tickets without a guarantee. And this year is no different, but at this exact second, I don't have an email confirmation. And seeing my friends posting that they have theirs gave me a second of pause, where I suddenly realized how much attachment I do have to acceptance from this community. And don't get me wrong, the wheels are turning, the forms are being filled out. I'll be back home this year. It's going to happen, but not having the confirmation in my physical grasp made me realize how attached I've become to this world and how much it means to me, how much it would hurt if it was taken away from me. Does that mean I should become more aloof, care less? Nah, I'm simply going to bring my awareness to it, to this attachment. I'm doing the quoties. Does attachment mean I should be okay with walking away from all of this if I needed to for some reason? Maybe? Or maybe seeking detachment in this case is a reminder from my guardian angels that Burning Man does not define me, said the host of Burner Podcast. I am a photographer. I host another major podcast in the indie hip-hop scene. I am a music video director. I do all of these. I'm an artist. I do all these things. But I am none of these things at the same time. At the end of this dusty day, I am another soul on a journey, and at the end of the day, Burning Man is another event, and the real thing that draws us together is a connection with all these other aspects of human consciousness. This tribe. Burning Man didn't invent this tribe. It's simply built a structure for it. If we're all geeks, then Burning Man is our comic convention. Speaking of all that it takes to go back home and how we can potentially secure not everyone, anybody could potentially secure their ticket to the burn. Gosh, I'm going to awkwardly segue into today's topic. A couple of years back, I had the pleasure of working with today's guest on the Wonderlust Arcade, a San Diego regional project which sat at the base of the man. You've heard Wonderlust Arcade be referenced multiple times on this show because that's where I met Ramiro, who is our chief Playa scientist, who led Cabina X0 out to the burn, who is our online editor. That's also where I got to meet Tori Massey, who was our online editor and is now our associate producer and also works on Alkaline. Navjeet, the producer of Alkaline and contributing producer to this show, also did work on the Wonderlust Arcade. It was a big team of builders under the guidance of lead artist and project manager Dave Timms of Sol Diego. We're going to get into what Sol Diego is in the conversation that you're about to hear. Wonderlust Arcade was basically an old school arcade, like a video game arcade, complete with games and a love testing machine, and it was all within the confines of a forced perspective room, meaning that as you walked deeper into the room, you'd appear to be taller to someone standing on the outside. The project was really fucking amazing, and if you attended in 2015, you'll remember that it was an ungodly dusty year. That year broke multiple Burning Man vets that I knew who swore they'd never go back. And I mean, it's only been a couple of years, but or maybe a year? It's only been a year. And they haven't gone back. The project was really amazing. If you attended in 2015, you may have experienced it underneath the man. I wanted to do an episode that goes through all the steps of what goes into getting a project that big up. And Dave was the first name that popped into my head. So today's show is about that process. It's about the Wonderlust Arcade. We've been wanting to do this for a long time. And we're going to go through it from start to finish, painstakingly. Today's episode is going to be really geeky. If you're really into all the geekery that goes into building a large art piece that goes out into the man, today's episode is one of those episodes. Dave was amazing to work under. I really enjoyed his leadership style. We're going to get into talking about all of that stuff. I felt like he was very similar to the way that I like to run projects. Not that if I have the capacity for the level of physical labor and building shit that Dave can, because he can pretty much build anything. But I guess I could totally lead a team of design nerds in the same manner, right? Who fucking knows? Let's go ahead and get into it. You're going to learn all about the Wonderlust Arcade, which pretty much everybody who is part of the Burner Podcast family, has worked on to some capacity. It was a huge experience for all of us and built a lot of these relationships and built the pathway for what eventually became some of our projects, what became Cabina X0, which is what we took out there. We have Wonderlust to thank for that. So you're going to hear all those stories today. So anyway, let's go ahead and get into it. Today's episode is entitled Wonderlust Arcade. I'm so creative with today's title. I go by Mr. Arash, even though nobody calls me Mr. Welcome to Burner Podcast.
On the first part of the journey, I was looking at all the life. There were plants and birds and rocks and things. There was sand and hills and rain. The first thing I met was the fly with the balls and the sky with no clouds. The heat was hot and the ground was dry, but the air was full of sound. I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name, because there ain't no one for to give you no name.
Usually I have like some sort of a foreplay out of nowhere statement to start the conversation from years of doing podcasting. And mine was going to be the story about being at the Shell gas station and my card getting declined. But I already said it outside, so now I don't have anything. So, hi.
So pressure's on.
Yeah.
What do you got? It's a Shell story.
Yeah. No, fuck the story. We're just going to go and get started.
All right.
What's up, Dave? Finally, get on here.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It has been a while.
Well, it's been a while since we've seen each other.
Yeah. Which is actually great because I prefer that when I'm recording with somebody because it feels more fresh. If I'm hanging out with somebody like every day and we start recording, it loses some of the energy. We're honeymooning a little bit right now.
Are we?
Yeah. Ramiro, say something.
Something.
Okay, good. Oh, God, we're off to a rousing start by the way on this podcast. So for today's, what I really wanted to get into is I wanted to go through the process for today's show. Like, I wanted to go through the whole process of what goes into taking a piece of art out to the burn, from like conception to all the initial meetings to all the execution. Like, we went through all that stuff. And I've also wanted to tell the Wonderlust Arcade story. So utilizing the Wonderlust Arcade as the mechanism to tell that story, I thought would be a lot of fun. And it turns out that Ramiro is here, which is on that project is pretty much how we met. So it worked out perfectly.
Yeah. It'd be nice to have AK here too.
It would be. Yeah, he was not available tonight.
Yeah.
But AK was such a major part of that project. Dave Cox, who's also been on the show in the past, he was on the Maker episode.
Yeah, Dave was awesome.
Dave was amazing. Just getting to know, for me, like my favorite part of that experience, like I don't know if you remember this conversation we were having, it was like right before we left for the burn, and we had this trailer that was rented in order to take everything out there, and we're building a cage to keep all the pieces of the arcade in this cage, right? And I want to say it was like 1 a.m. or something, where like you were climbing on top of it and banging away. And by the way, you guys have incredibly fucking nice neighbors who are like really cool with all that noise and all that madness. By the way, Angie's also in the room. She's going to wave, but you can't hear her because it's an audio medium. Yeah, I remember like all the neighbors were like so fucking nice, and we were climbing up on this thing, we're putting this thing together, there's hammers and drills, and we're building this cage, and it's on a flatbed trailer where pieces of the Wonderlust Arcade are stacked up next to each other and kind of like Tetrised in there so that we can get it out to Black Rock City. And that was the moment that it like really hit me that there was this crew of people And we all had this like amazing bonding experience, you know, like there's like such tight-knit relationships that came out of the process of building this thing, but not just from building it, also from like the process of like building that cage in order to get it out there. Mm-hmm. And if we had money, we could have just like thrown money at the problem and gotten like a more expensive, you know, get like a bunch of shipping carts and like get it out there a lot faster and pay somebody else to take it out there, right? But because there was that limitation of funding for any project, it forces people to work together, and at the end of it, you feel a lot more satisfaction, a lot more enlightenment, a lot deeper connections. And I remember like that was something that I thought a lot about. Like if I was just a millionaire and I could have just thrown money at the project, would I have gotten the same kind of fulfillment?
Probably not.
Would I have gotten the same connections, you know?
Yeah, probably not. But I mean, that's like Abraxas, and Abraxas and Paul also were a huge part of Wonderlust because they brought the organ, which was the other half. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. It's only 50%, right?
Right.
On two people's shoulders. They're huge contributors. So, but Abraxas says giraffe money. You know, it's like if you were a millionaire, you'd be like, "Oh, yeah, we did the project, and now we got all this money left over. What do we? Let's buy a giraffe." You know, but
I like that.
But the reason we had the flatbed is because it was cheaper.
Yeah,
and it allowed all the flexibility from the bed up.
Yeah.
And so with that, we could do our own custom transportation. And part of that, you're right, is the money. Mm-hmm. But even if you had a lot more money, donors, when people give me money anyway, and I think I'll probably speak for anybody in the burner art community, when you have donors, it's that money is almost worth more than the dollar value that it occupies in the bank account. So if there's a cheaper, more efficient way to bring the project to the Playa, you do it.
Yeah.
If it takes more man hours, this is something that we all do to create that bond. Okay, so it took a little bit more time. We all got something out of that.
Yeah.
So that's paying for itself. And so it's largely my philosophy that if you can do it more efficiently, but it takes a little bit more time, and you have the resources, the human resources to put that effort forward to make it happen, do it.
Yeah.
Because that way you can look at your donors and say, next time I do a project, you know that every penny you give, we're going to try to build a cooler project, not have a more comfortable transportation experience for us.
Right.
It's going to be, we're going to bring cooler stuff to the Playa.
Right. And that reputation is the resume, if you will, is a very important factor to the kind of art that you can build, the kind of projects that you can experiment with. Mm-hmm. And so like that actually segues perfectly into the very beginning of our story.
Start at the end and then go to the beginning.
Well,
right?
no, it's like an action movie. You start out with an action scene, and then you get into the story. So we start out with a story. Nobody goes like, "Fuck, I gotta watch all of this."
We just did the chase scene.
Yeah. We just did a chase scene. Now it's flashing back to the beginning because in order to understand Wonderlust Arcade and the reputation that we're discussing right now, we have to understand Sol Diego first. So let's go back to the beginning of that. So Sol Diego was, I don't know, how do we describe it? The name behind the project, the nonprofit. Tell us what Sol Diego is.
Sol Diego is it started off as just a group of us builders, artists, Brandy, me, Paul, Abraxas, who all contributed to came into Earth Still Soul. And that
is for the listeners who are not familiar with the project.
That was a regional effigy. It was a core project, a circle of regional effigies. Core is an acronym. The first year they did it, I think that was 2009.
2009. Okay. And so like different regions from around the world contributed to the circle of effigies, and everybody set that shit on fire.
Thursday night. It was great.
Okay.
Big fire. Mm-hmm. And so there was a little bit of a there was some contention with who got credit. And so as it was, there was one person who submitted the original design or idea, and their name was on it. And they were the lead. And so the whole piece, even though it was a result of 60 or 70 people, or no, I think it was probably closer to 60 or 70 was the carousel. This one was probably 30 or 40 people, all working together to bring this thing to life. And so we didn't think it was really accurate to attribute that to one person.
Is that typically how it works with projects that go out to the burn? Like one person's name needs to be on it?
It goes both ways. There are organized groups that function as a group, but of course there are leads within that group. But if it, like in this case, there were a lot of us that contributed to the design, and me, I didn't at the time. I didn't think I was going to be doing that many projects, so I didn't care if my name was on it. But there were some other people who this was a real resume builder, and they wanted to continue. But that was their life, was building art,
right.
And so for them to not get any kind of recognition didn't seem fair. And so what we came up with was Sol Diego, which is an arts collaborative. And so that way we could function as a group, because no project is done by one person. Well, there are projects that are done by one person. The projects that I've worked on are not a one-person project.
Right.
And since then we've worked under that name, Sol Diego. And that it is mainly because everybody who contributed could say, I'm part of Sol Diego.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's my name on it.
Yeah. And I'm a big fan of collectives, personally. I think that way you can have different people come in and out, and you can still channel the resume of the collective rather than like the people that are coming in and out. Yeah. So flash forward to, wait, what the fuck year was it? 2014, 2015? Were we in 2000? Was Wonderlust still? 15. Okay, 15. Yeah. Right, the year of the dust. So flash forward 2015, Sol Diego is the name that goes on the piece. And so how does this process work? Let's go back to sort of like the beginning of the burns coming up. At what point do you receive word that submissions are open to turn in for a project, to start a project, take to the burn, a regional one?
Well, after the first project, you get all kinds of mail from the Burning Man org. And so I don't remember exactly when it happened. I mean, but they just have a call for art.
Right.
And they explain, kind of what they're looking for. It'll be around the man, at the foot of the man. So we had seen the tents around the man that Wonderlust would be sitting under for the Souk project from the year before.
Right.
So we were familiar with that.
Okay. So 2004.
Well, you were part of Souk.
Yeah. I was the co-lead that year on Playa. That was when we met. Actually, I remember the exact moment that we met in the middle of the dust under the man. Yeah, and
I delivered the table.
Yeah,
and you were there hanging curtains.
Yes, yeah, you delivered the table, and you totally alpha male looked me up and down. I remember that very clearly. Like, who the fuck is this guy? No. I'm very understanding of how that interaction works. So that was 2014. So that was the moment that we met. So like pretty much after the year, did you know right away that you would be looking to get involved in next year's core project, or when did the idea to get involved come about?
For me, getting involved is it's got to be something that is exciting. To get involved for the sake of getting involved, it works for a few meetings, and that's been proven time and time again by a lot of volunteers that show up for all the planning meetings, and they get to decide, and then it's not a sprint.
No, we're going to get to that part because I was there for a couple of those meetings too.
yeah, but it's not a sprint, and so if the project doesn't speak to you, either find something that does, or carve out a niche within that project that you're really passionate about. For me to get involved and to lead a project, it occupies so much of your life for those 8 or 9 months, whatever it is. If you're not passionate about it, you may end up hating it.
Right.
And I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
That sounds terrible.
Which I guess would be kind of helpful if it's one that you're setting on fire, but
I've loved every one of the projects that I've been a part of. There are some that have been less successful than others, but I think you have to love it.
Right. When did the idea of the arcade get conceived?
Ramiro, were you at one of those planning meetings? I'm trying to remember.
Weren't we drawing like a tree and somehow, I don't know, turn into an arcade?
I feel like I was there for one of the planning meetings where this was like the community was invited to this, right? Like everybody who's interested in potentially being involved in a regional project was involved.
I think it was
invited.
Brandy.
Okay. She came up with the idea of the arcade?
It may have been. And I think AK was playing around with he was playing with programming video games, and like he had a version of what's that airplane game, 1942 or something with the anyway.
Yeah.
So his version, his first person airplane shooter game, and then Brandy was involved, and she said, "Oh, there was this thing. It wasn't like Belmont Park." And at the time, I was working at Belmont that was my job. We were rehabbing Belmont. But she said that there was another one. I think it was OB. It was called Wonderlust or Wonderland or something.
Wonderland? Was it called Wonderlust? Because Wonderland was that nickel arcade I used to go to in middle school.
You know what? I don't know.
Yeah.
Wonderland. There you go.
That's awesome. I love that the project lead has no idea when the idea was conceived.
The arcade wasn't very exciting.
Yeah.
The idea that we could create a
forced perspective.
Yeah, the forced perspective room, an optical illusion in real life. I mean, it's just like, whoa. Yeah, everybody saw it on Willy Wonka, and that was kind of a cheesy version.
Right.
Of course, that's the one. The cheesy version's the one everybody's seen. Let's do like a real one.
Right.
One with a lot of pieces in it.
Yeah. Now, I want to know I'm trying to figure out the timeline here. So we have Burn.
Yeah.
And then go backwards a few months. There's planning meetings where people from the community are invited to give input and ideas.
Yeah.
Was there a decision made at some point that Sol Diego is taking a project as a regional this year, and then we're going to start having planning meetings and figuring it out? Or was the idea cultivated and then the rest of the process started?
I think we did a call for art. And the pipe organ had already existed at Utopia. And
it like made its way to some maker fair type stuff as well, right?
Yeah, but I think at this point it had only been at Utopia because it was within the ISIS pyramid, which was a previous project as well, which is really conceived just to house the organ.
Yeah.
And so this was another opportunity to bring the organ out, and I think Paul and Arash wanted to burn it. I think they still want to burn it. But you could ask them. It's a very typical thing when you go to these planning meetings that people say, well, if we have an organ and we have a plan for an arcade, can we do an organ in an arcade?
Yeah.
And a lot of times you end up with just, it's kind of a, I don't know. For me, it looks like a mess.
Mm-hmm.
And so this time we kind of just drew a line down the center of the allotment that Burning Man Org gave us next to the man and said, we're bringing two projects side by side. And that's what we did.
Yeah.
Because,
Sure.
I love, hamburgers, and I love ice cream. I just don't want ice cream on my hamburger.
So, about how many months before the burn, ballpark, did we have a clear idea of what the project was going to be?
We had it finalized in April. So we started building in May.
There you go.
Okay.
Finalized in April, building in May.
Yeah. And finalized meaning okay, bounce to the beginning of that again.
Uh-huh.
So what, do you send in an application to BM.org? Explain that process.
BM.org has a questionnaire, an application, and...
Can anybody apply?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't check resumes or anything.
Right.
It'd be really kind of sad if they did.
Yeah. So anybody can apply to have a project under the man?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course. Totally. And then, but they ask for very generic design ideas, and they're looking for conceptual stuff. They're looking for a lot of the metaphysical bullshit that you put on applications, to use Paul's words. Yeah.
Ramiro's nodding violently yes to that.
He's an architect. Yeah. Metaphysical bullshit. Metaphysical bullshit. And they buy into it. Mm-hmm. And then it's up to you to make that concept come alive.
With 2 images. Only 2 images.
Yeah.
Really? Okay. How long before, about what month are they expecting that application?
You gotta submit it before, end of the year. Early December is when it's the cutoff.
Okay.
They moved that up this year. In the past, I think it was closer to May or April.
Okay. So let's say around April is when you have to have the application in. By May, it was approved.
Yeah.
And it was approved based on just a couple of images?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. But it's fantastic. I mean, it's the greatest art show in the world, but it's not a huge art grant. At that point, then the next step is, holy cow, we got approved.
Right.
How do we pay for it? Because everybody wants to pick up a hammer and saw and start doing something, but the materials cost money.
Right.
So then the race for fundraising and all your design has to be done at that point.
Yeah.
Because you need the design in order to get people excited to give you the money, and then you need the money in order to start building part of the design. Yeah. And so that first month is kind of the to the public, I think, the quiet month. Because, am I right, Ramiro? You're just stuck in your room.
Good Lord, Angie.
Waiting to hear back from him.
Well, or you're designing.
Yeah. Just kind of spinning your wheels, not even knowing if you're going to get a grant or not.
Well, this would be after the grant.
Yeah. Oh,
so they said, you're in.
Yeah.
And now you go.
So hold on. So is the approval and the grant the same thing? Could they approve a project and not give you money for it?
Yeah, they can, but around the man, it's kind of, there will be money attached, and they tell you what it is right up front.
About what percentage of it will they pay for?
It's not even looking at a percentage. Yeah. It's $2,000.
Okay. So if my project is $5,000, would they give me $2,000 for it?
I don't think they. I've never done a project that cheap. Yeah, they might even say, "Well, congratulations, you're fantastic with your budgets." They may only give you $500 for it. I don't know. Generally, the Burning Man grant is it's definitely appreciated. Every dollar counts, but it's not a major funding source. Mm-hmm. That's just your spot on the stage at Burning Man.
Right.
And it comes with some money to cover part of your transportation costs.
Right. And so if I want to build a project and put it underneath the man, is that a different application than the stuff that goes out in Open Playa, D Playa?
Yes.
Yeah.
This year, the they're announcing that, or I'm not sure if they announced it like last week, but they're doing that for the regionals, and I think it's like a regional effigy this year.
Okay.
For Radical Ritual.
So this year in 2017, they're going back to like specifically giving each region a spot to apply for.
I think so.
But the year that Wonderlust happened, like it was open to anybody who wanted to apply to build a project under demand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Generally, I mean, each region has their entry. Mm-hmm. And actually, now that you mention it, because Wonderlust is kind of an exceptional year because San Diego was represented twice. Mm-hmm. Previous years, they had, I think they had the regional, whatchamacallits, Nicole Hickman and those people. Mm-hmm. What are they called?
The regional, the core?
Contacts,
regional contact. Yeah. RCs, regional contacts.
Yeah, there you go, the RCs. Yeah. I think they had to bless the project and tell the BM org, yeah, they're legit. And that was really kind of all you needed. And in the past, like the Quemaduras del Sol and the Carousel, we were the only entry in San Diego. So, yeah, it was great. The third year the third year was the rocket ship. They were the Starfish. Then it was Soup. Then it was Wonderlust. So by that point, let's see. I think Wonderlust was the first time San Diego got represented twice under the man.
Yeah. The 2015.
Yeah. And that was there
was another project, not Wonderlust.
Right.
Dr. High's Balls.
Yeah, that's it.
I think I pronounced that right. So Wonderlust Arcade. Okay, so thing gets approved at this point, let's say around May. Before May, you're still having planning meetings. This is when you've put it out to the community to come in and give input, right?
Yep.
How many of those meetings do you think you had?
I think we had 2.
Okay. And just like invited whoever wants to come and be a part of it, come throw out ideas.
Advertise it, and, we probably had, 20 people, 25 maybe. Mm-hmm.
And I remember I didn't really know Ramiro very well yet back then. I remember you like taking notes quietly, which you still do, but now I know you better. So
I still don't talk much.
No. I'm also like, I like to imagine that you're just basically drawing penises all over your notebook. Yeah, I got my dick joke in. All right, moving on. So it's very important in each episode because we're professional.
You can't see how ready he is.
So, okay, so the thing gets approved. They base it on just like a couple of images. Like, are they looking at like your resume? Like, they're looking at Sol Diego, right? They're looking at things you've done in the past.
Well, yeah. I mean, you go through your leadership team, and on those resumes, you've got the lead. You've got they like seeing co-leads. They want to see if you're going to burn it down, who your fire and safety lead is. Do you have, and then the people, those lead positions, what's their resume look like? Mm-hmm. Are they going to deliver? And I think the Burning Man org is I think they're pretty generous.
Yeah.
Because in, the first few years, I was really surprised that it'd be like, hey, 14 effigies got approved and 12 arrived. And I thought, oh, wow. It's like, one in 7 fails? Wow, that's...
I remember one of our neighbors never got there, right? Because they had like shipping issues. Like their train got caught up and the pieces of the art never came. That was nuts.
Yeah, well, yeah, that happens every year. I mean, it happens every year to just anybody going to Burning Man. It's not not an easy destination.
Yeah.
But...
it's not even just that, I swear to God, like this, there's some weird fucking thing happens with the universe where like the burn like hazes you before you're allowed to get there. I pretty much every time there's always some sort of a crazy story about shit that happens with you just trying to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you're not allowed to just show up.
You got to pay a toll somewhere.
Yeah. At some point, some troll is crossing a bridge. Anyway, so May, it's approved.
Yep.
That's when you guys start building. What's the next step? What's happening?
Always looking for money. That's happening nonstop.
Yeah.
And that's through your Kickstarter campaigns. You got to find a phenomenal videographer and somebody to put together a great video. You have to do your Kickstarter. Well, you don't have to, but it's another method. You do local events like what was the one Kristen did? Kristen Williams.
Yeah. She put together
collab
at Frock U.
Playdate.
Yeah.
Is what they called it. And then just really just get down to it, brass tacks, nails, build it. Mm-hmm. And those are that's a whole effort in itself.
Right. How much do you think the design changed from the day that you turned in the application versus the final product?
The basic concept did not change.
That it's a forced perspective room with arcade games in it.
Yes.
Right.
Along the way, things pulled through. Like Dave Cox was amazingly productive. And so I think originally I was like, oh, yeah, sure, Dave, you could do this, like do your love testing machine.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, yeah, I can do that. And he does it in like a weekend.
Yeah.
It's like, holy cow, this guy's amazing. And so then you're like...
He handled pretty much like all the electronics and stuff, right?
He did.
Yeah. How did Dave get involved?
He was at a planning meeting. Believe it or not. I mean, that was probably the most amazing thing that's happened out of a planning meeting is the people that just come out of the woodwork.
Right. He was at a planning meeting, and did he suggest the love testing machine?
No, he was just really interested in working with Arduinos and working with the project to just make things happen. He is like the ultimate support team. He's very creative in his own way, but you just give him a direction, and he comes up with brilliant, cool designs. So and what's best about Dave is it's not just cool designs; it's that he does it.
Yeah.
It's not just, because you can meet a lot of people that have brilliant ideas.
Yeah.
There's a lot of brilliant people out there, but not everybody has the ability and the dedication to just produce.
Right.
Or follow through.
And Dave Cox does that.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember at the planning meetings, there were people there that I never saw again after the planning meetings who were also extremely vocal about their ideas.
Well, that's what they...
Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember exact people, but I could be wrong. I mean, I remember a few faces.
No, you're
that
right,
were there.
and that happened every year.
Yeah,
the faces change, but they bring strong opinions to the table, but that's where they end. Mm-hmm. That happens every time.
Yeah,
and I think the first year when we did Que Maduro Still Soul, that was a set design. Carousel, I think Brandy and I had half dozen design meetings where we came up with brainstorms and all kinds of different stuff.
Yeah.
And then the Starfish was less. And each year for me, it's been kind of less because the brainstorming events, it's a great place to meet people, but I haven't felt like, and I know this sounds terrible with a community-focused event, but the people that come up with ideas, you can take the ideas and run with them, but you can't expect those people to ever show up and be passionate about the idea that they pitched.
Right.
And so that's why, at the very beginning of this, I said, you have to be passionate about the whole project if you're going to lead it, because you really can't count on anybody else to be passionate about it.
Right.
Even if it was their idea, you have to own it,
Right.
And that's something, AK, Ramiro, Sam, Dave, a lot of the designers behind this whole project, we were all very passionate about it. And I think that's why there was such a great bond between us, was that, we're all pushing towards that same common goal. The idea that you have a brainstorm and that the quote unquote community wants X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
But if the people who are actually doing it don't feel the same way about X, Y, Z, they want to do ABC.
Right.
Forget X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
Let's do ABC.
Yeah.
Because we're going to enjoy it, and we're in this for each other.
Yeah.
We're not in this necessarily to to fulfill the community's wish that day.
Right. That's something I've learned over years of working on a lot of different, not just even art, just projects in general.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, look, if you want to be the person who's sitting up till 3 a.m. doing it, like I got your back. Even though it's not like my favorite idea, I know I'm not going to be sitting up till 3 a.m. doing it. So if you're going to do it, I'm going to put all my resources behind you.
You didn't stay up till 3 with that video?
Not at that one.
Oh,
for the video? Maybe.
You did a good job with that.
Thank you. You did good on camera.
You know what? If that was a 9 p.m. video, I'd love to see a 3 a.m. video.
No, it's different projects I've been involved on, where like you'll see like a group of artists like argue with each other about like the name of the project, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna hedge all my bets on the person who is most passionate, and I don't give a fuck if that's my favorite idea.
Yeah.
Because that's the guy who's gonna be up till 3 a.m. working on the logos, working on the t-shirts. Like, let's just put all of our resources behind him. You get up front, lead the way. Let's do this. I wonder. So to go back to like the planning meetings here. So we had people had ideas. You were saying that in the earlier years you worked harder on having a design before you brought it to the community, but as the years have gone on, you've been more about opening up to like let other people contribute their ideas. Is that correct? What I heard?
I think it's the other way around. Mm-hmm. Early on, it was a lot of getting community input and working with that. Mm-hmm.
Design by committee was earlier. And then after a few years of that, I just thought, oh God, this is, the committee changed to the crew. Right.
When the crew shows up, and that's the other funny thing is for our group, some groups get, within the Burning Man community, there's a lot of different groups. You have the DJ group. They want to play the loud music. They want to dance. That's the party. And that's what really gets people excited.
Yeah, here for the techno, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's for the techno. Yes, it's so good, yeah. That's my one accent.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it. That's all I got. Not a fucking accent guy.
All right. But then you have other groups that are really into this community and group think and the group decision, and they want to have that big community group hug. And then you have the group of people that show up to be the build crew. Build crew doesn't show up to the community input sessions unless you twist their arm. But then you have, like Ramiro and AK, drawing dicks in the back row.
Yeah.
They're sitting there, but they're not doing a lot of input until you get to the point where you're like, okay, what are we going to build? And they go, oh, then you see them perk up.
Right.
And they're like, oh, yeah, let's do things.
Yeah.
So there's doers.
That's so spot on.
There's doers and then there's talkers.
Yeah.
And then there's dancers, and then there's there's different groups. And so the thing that I've realized over the years is that the group of builders, they don't want to talk about it. They just want to do it. Mm-hmm. And they're doers. Huh. And so the community outreach is really to try to bring in other doers that just didn't hear about us, and to bring in some idea people that might be hooked on an idea that they're passionate about, and they'll come in and bring in new ideas. Yeah. But if we have to present to SDCAP and get an approval by committee on a design by committee and then funded by committee, pretty soon all the doers in the room have left.
Yeah.
Because they're just like, okay, too many committees, we're done.
Yeah.
Call us when you're ready to pick up a saw or a hammer and to paint.
Yeah.
You know, they don't want that.
Yeah, you lose their attention.
You do.
Yeah.
It's not what they're there for. They bond over building.
So you have found that it's a lot stronger to have a design ready to go. Or at least, like, if my memory is correct, you know, you had, like, the structure of a design ready to go.
Together, yeah.
Yeah. And then you were there for input, and then the input kind of got some people hooked into, all right, I'm going to do this thing. And
yeah, like the wallpaper.
Yeah. Yeah.
The wallpaper is a classic example.
Who came up with the wallpaper? Do you remember?
Yeah, I was in a meeting, in a Sol Diego meeting, where we were talking with Paul and Abraxas, and AK was there, and I was there, and I think Finn was just sitting in. Mm-hmm. I think maybe she rode with AK or something. But we were talking about the inside of the arcade, where you'd have like a chain, like a chair rail, and then a lot of the old school places they'd have wallpaper above and then some solid color below. It's just like an old school way of doing things, like a 1920s aesthetic, like Brandy originally envisioned for the arcade. And so then we were talking about different colors for the wallpaper. And originally I was like, well, could we just paint it? Because I understand paint. We've done paint on many projects before this. And then I think Paul was like, there's no way you're going to find the colors that work with the lights, because we were talking about changing lights, and wouldn't it be cool if the walls moved?
Yeah.
So an illusion within the illusion.
Yeah.
And then we started playing around with that idea, but it was originally with paint. Mm-hmm. Then I don't remember how we came up with the printing it. It's a pretty logical step.
Seems like a Ramiro idea.
It's easier.
It's just easier.
Was it a Ramiro idea?
It could have. Yeah, it could have been. I mean, but AK did most of the research on that. He said he was there with a strip of the LEDs in a pillow fort in his living room with different designs that he had printed out and worked on, different colors. But I think it was your design, wasn't it, Ramiro? It was one of your stock designs.
Yeah, the weird sun thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's for the listeners who have no idea what the fuck we're talking about. The wallpaper on the arcade was an intricate geometric design, and it had LED lights shining on it so that all the different layers of it kept changing colors, and it was almost 3D when you looked at it, right? Well,
the way the color worked, it's a really simple physics trick. Was if you have blue and greens, and then you have like a yellow, then green is a combination of blue and yellow, right? Yeah. And so if you shine a yellow light on it, the yellow and
the yellow-green
will pop, but the blue won't. Mm-hmm. And then if you shine a red light on it, then all of them are going to be kind of muted. But then do the blue light, and boom, your yellow goes away, and your green and blue. And so that was the concept in our original meeting with paint was, can we make the wallpaper change with the lights that we shine on it? Mm. It's a theater trick, and I think I even ran a bunch of ideas past Nate, who's been involved with past. He was a major force behind the Starfish, and he's a theater guy, and so he was a great resource on that. But that was another example of how the design did change from the bare bones, original to what we ended up with. It ended up being a really cool feature.
Originally, it wasn't gonna. You were just gonna paint the walls, and it wasn't gonna have that intricate design.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Scope creep.
I'm sorry.
Scope creep.
Creep.
Yeah.
That sounds like a pre-teen slang for something somebody does on somebody's cell phone.
It's project manager talk for when you start with a certain scope, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But it slowly gets bigger and bigger, and so you don't realize it. Paul calls a lot of our problems scope leap.
Yeah.
It's not creeping, it's leaping.
Yeah.
It's leaps and bounds.
How long was the build?
What did we do? 3 months?
May, June, July, August, it was ready to pack.
Yeah.
So about 4 months. Was that on schedule?
Most.
Because this is what you do professionally, right? I mean, I don't know how to describe to people what you do professionally, but you basically make sure shit's on schedule in a build.
I work for a contractor. At the time, I was working for a real estate developer, but I work as a project manager. Yeah.
I mean, is that...
I'm an engineer by training.
Right. And is that all like draining to be doing that all day at work and then come home and do it all night?
You got to be passionate about it. Yeah. If you're passionate about it, no, not at all. In fact, if you're really passionate about it, more passionate than what you're doing at work, you sit at work and think about things for your work after work on the project.
If I want to take a project to the burn, what do you think is more important, the artistic experience or the project management experience?
The relationship between the project manager and the artist.
You were kind of, I mean, what would you say your role was? Because your sort of title was like lead artist. But I mean, my memory of it was that you kind of like in a director's chair, and there was a lot of artists, and I remember there was a lot of different contributing ideas. And I found you to be extremely supportive. That's why I really enjoyed working under it. Go ahead. I want to know what your philosophy on that experience is.
Well, I think director might be good. I mean, because you have, but this Wonderlust was one of the most, I would consider it the most successful project that I've worked on, with respect to bringing in many different artists.
Right.
And that was really my goal for this project, was to take another tangent, because we all love tangents.
Yeah. I'm shocked we haven't had more.
Yeah. ISIS pyramid. Ramiro was brought in by Brandy, and
ISIS was like the Egyptian god.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we didn't. Just want to clarify, since this is a show hosted by a Middle Eastern guy.
Yeah.
This is unrelated. Continue.
Sorry, I refused to bend to the ISIS group. I was like, no. It's a goddess there, and it's of love and all those great things. So, but at any rate, previous years, we at Sol Diego, mainly under Brandy's efforts to bring in outside ideas from students at New School of Architecture, which is how we made the connection with Ramiro and Sam and what's the other guy's name?
Miguel.
Sobrato. Sobrato was a big part of the temple at Utopia, right? Mm-hmm. And so,
how did the connection with New School get made? Did you go to the New School of Architecture? And
Brandy did.
Brandy did. Okay.
Yeah.
And she found your fraternity?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so, remember, clarify what the fraternity is.
It's an architecture fraternity. It's Alpha Rho Chi, and at the time we were the newest chapter.
And you were one of the founding fathers.
Yes.
Okay.
Along with Sobrato and Sam.
Right. And then so Brandy came and found you guys and said, do you want to get involved with this thing?
Well, she found Sobrato, and then Sobrato came to the group, really, excited about it, and he suckered us into it. Yeah. And,
so we have Sobrato to thank for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sobrato's a great designer, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I've met Sobrato.
No?
I keep thinking it's like that pizza chain at the mall.
Oh, no. Totally different.
Yeah, okay.
But you should meet him.
Yeah, all right.
That way you'll be able to tell the difference.
I'm looking forward to him. Yeah. Okay.
So anyway, so Brandy bringing in all these new, very talented architecture students to design and to try to do the project management side and the fundraising and all that. There's so many hats. It's a pain in the ass, really. And so to be able to say, Sam, Ramiro, you guys do this.
Yeah.
Dave Cox, you're working on that, right? Great. AK, you're working on these things. That really kind of then became more of a project management role, which was so much easier than ever before. Because earlier, there was just a few people working on those problems. Now it's just coordinating the people.
Yeah.
And fortunately, they're all great people to work with. So, I mean, it really moved smoothly, and it was a lot of fun.
And then Ramiro and Sam came back to work. Was Ramiro working on Wonderlust as well?
Sobrato wasn't working on Wonderlust.
Okay. Sam and Ramiro came back.
Yeah, Sam, Ramiro.
Sobrato learned better and got the fuck out of here.
Yes.
Didn't he graduate, though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me and Sam had to stick around an extra quarter.
Yeah.
For
Did you get held back?
I got held back because I spent too much time on Burning Man stuff.
That's a great lesson to be sending out to our listeners.
Stay in school. Don't miss your finals or midterms.
Okay, so what was Sam and Ramiro's part in Wonderlust?
I guess just getting the 3D model ready and figuring out the dimensions for the floor and how everything's gonna angle into one force point perspective. Sam took over pretty much everything. I was going through a hard time, mom issues. She was sick. And after that, it was just getting the cabinets and the inside to work out and match the slope floor. So just CNC files mainly.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, you guys were there every day. I don't remember you not being there.
Oh, I was not there for a good
Sam was there.
Sam was there, for sure.
Yeah.
Huh, that's funny. Human memory is the least reliable thing.
One of the last meeting, I think it was the last meeting we had at CoLab, was the proof of concept meeting, where we built a quick and dirty ramp.
Yeah.
And then we had tent poles where we did tarps on the side and tarps for the ceiling, just to prove to a lot of people, because a lot of people were like, there's no way you're going to fool anyone.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody was buying the forced perspective room part of it.
Right. And so I was 100% invested. I was like, yes, we can do this. And just to prove it, we were like, all right, we're going to have an entire build day where we're going to just produce a ramp and build something to fake walls in the ceiling. And after people saw it, then they're like, oh, okay.
So you guys had a day, I was not there for this. You guys had a day of build just to basically convince the crew that this is something you should be doing.
Yeah.
I remember a lot, I do remember a lot of the, what's the word? I didn't want to say naysayers. Sounds very...
There were some skeptics out there.
Yeah, skeptic. There you go. I remember a lot of skepticism in the design meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you guys built one just to get everybody on board.
Well, how else do you convince them?
Yeah, I never thought about that.
You could argue.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you're dealing with that level of physical building, I mean, it's not like the kind of shit that I do, which is print and design and photography. I just start moving in a direction and people start following little by little. But it is this kind of the same thing. You show somebody the image, then they're more likely to buy into your product. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. You have to sell all these people who are not getting paid to be there in order to get them on board to build this crazy ass fucking thing that we're going to take out to the desert. Mm-hmm. Had to show them that it can work.
Yeah.
And then they saw it and everybody was sold.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice.
Burner Podcast.
Hey, quick break to tell you that the 2017 Burning Man low-income sales tickets are open right now, this exact second. If you are listening to this podcast and you're listening to it, I don't know, in 2017 before Burning Man, you can still go apply. I often hear people say, like, man, I really want to go, but I can't afford Burning Man because the tickets are expensive. We got you, dude. It turns out that they don't get anywhere near as many applicants. This is what I'm told. They don't get anywhere near as many applicants as people think they do, so a lot of people don't even try, but you should just try. Burning Man org always ends up, the past couple of years, they've ended up giving out less tickets than they anticipated. So, look, go to burningman.org, look for the low-income ticket sales. All the details are there. It can't hurt to give it a try, right? Because you're a broke hippie or artist or broke hippie artist. Go do it. tickets.burningman.org/low-income-ticket-program. Again, that's tickets.burningman.org/low-income-ticket-program. Go look that up, register, see if you can get a cheaper ticket. Come on, dude. Believe in yourself. I believe in you. Believe in me who believes in you. I hope to see your broke house out there in the dust. And let's get back to the show. So the arcade games, was the idea there from the beginning that it was going to be like 4 games and then the love tester and what else was there? Simon, right. Or did those develop during the build?
We had, and this was part of the early brainstorming. We did have a few brainstorming events, but they were over at Kay and Boone's place. And, oh man, you get her excited about a project. And, I mean, she created like pages of games. Like,
Kay?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, have you seen her excited about something?
Yes.
She's like a little Energizer bunny.
Right.
And so she had pages and pages of potential games from the 80s that this could all work. And so that was kind of the idea, was arcade games from the 80s with a 1920s perspective. Mm-hmm. And so, or 1920s flair or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
So we really had, it was a target-rich environment. We just say, well, here's pages of ideas, because she's a good idea person. So then we threw those out there, and Dave Cox was like, oh, I'd love to do this, and I can do that. And so it was like a menu of options.
Yeah. And AK designed the games.
Yeah.
The actual, like, digital games.
Yeah, like Space Invaders. Yeah. That's a nice 1980s game.
Yeah.
Pong.
Yeah.
And his awesome, like, voiceovers. Capital, he just has great voices, too. What are the other ones?
Mushroom Game.
The Mushroom Game was his custom one.
The Mushroom Game was AK's original idea, right? Yeah. It was, so... It looked like a 1980s arcade game. The idea was that you're walking around on Playa, and like every time you eat a mushroom, everything in the game changes. It like flips upside down.
Yeah, I mean, like your joystick controller, like up is left and down is down. Right would be right. Left, who knows?
What was the most unexpected thing during build? Like, by the time that the project was over, what was the thing that you completely did not see coming at all that ended up becoming a part of the project at the end when it was taken out there?
That ended up being part of the project? The most unexpected thing that just stopped us dead in our tracks was the first day when we realized the tent was not the dimensions that the Burning Man org said the tent was.
The first day on Playa.
Yep, we unloaded it.
Yeah, this whole thing's been designed, and this is a room. It has a roof, it has walls.
Yes.
And then we get there, and it is not, the size of the tent is not the correct size.
It's shorter.
Okay.
It's the wrong direction. It's not taller. It doesn't give us more room. It actually will rub against the roof and push against the roof.
I want to come back to that. Okay. I want to go back to like the month before
Okay.
Because that's fucking, that's a cliffhanger right there. Ooh. Okay. So go back like a month before.
Commercial?
Yeah. I think we might have already. Okay. Let's go back to like a month earlier. You're building away. All the measurements are there. Everything's being rechecked and checked.
Yeah.
The roof. I remember like the roof and the floor also had a new sort of design that were added in, right?
Yeah. The dots.
Right, the dots.
Yeah.
Did you come up with that idea?
Yeah.
Where did you come up with that? And describe what it is, by the way.
The dots are a... yeah, it's another optical illusion. We really went wild with how many different ways can we screw with people's eyes when they're looking at this. Let's just send people into seizures. Yeah. So I spent a lot of time on Google looking at optical illusions, things that were easy to produce but had a really cool optical effect.
Right.
So the roof or the ceiling and the floor were opposites of each other in the color spectrum. So the ceiling was white with gray bars, like a gray grid, and then a black dot at the intersection of the grids. And what that ends up doing is your eyes look at it and they see, or no, Ramiro, is it white with black lines and a gray dot? And then it ends up putting a black dot there because your brain is working on something else.
It's kind of a mindfuck looking at it.
Ramiro's looked it up on his phone.
Oh, yeah.
Listeners.
Now I'm looking at the picture and my eyes are going crazy. All right, so the floor it's just going to be the opposite for the ceiling. Right. The floor is black.
Right, go ahead.
And then you'll have, what is it? Is it white lines?
Gray lines.
Gray lines and white dots.
And then so anywhere you look, it feels like the dot is moving around.
The dots that are white change to black where your focus is.
Yeah.
But in your peripheral vision, they're white.
Yeah.
And so as you look around the room, the dots in front of you are changing colors from white to black.
Right.
And on the ceiling, from black to white.
Right.
But in your peripheral vision, they're normal.
Yeah. Which looked amazing, before it got covered in dust.
Yeah. It was a good 1 or 2 day effect.
You think it worked 2 days? I think the minute we got out there, the dust storm happened. And it all went.
Yeah, actually, there's photographic evidence. I think you took the photos too.
Yeah.
The Praxis's camera too.
Yeah.
Did you have your own camera out there?
No, I was shooting with my phone.
Okay. And
the Praxis had the camera, yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, schedule.
Yeah.
Did you have to, was the schedule just pretty much on? Did you have to add build days in order to catch up to the schedule?
Yeah, I think we had 2 or 3 weeks of weekdays builds. Yeah. And we also had a few volunteers like Chuck Cole who would take parts of the project home. Mm-hmm. And he and his neighbor worked on a bunch of things. The door that was, it was only like 4 feet tall, but it was supposed to occupy like a 6'8" illusion. He built the door, him and his neighbor. He built the back step. He did a lot of the clear coat on the floor. Yeah. He did that in the driveway during the week when we were all at work. So, we as a crew worked at night, but then we also had some crew members, notably Chuck, that were working during the day. He's retired, and he made a lot of contribution there.
From a building perspective, what was the thing that you had learned from previous builds that on this one you're like, yeah, I know this one from previous experiences. This is the way we're doing it.
Modular design.
Modular design?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
All the walls were the same width. They weren't the same height, but they were the same width. And so that way when we built our transportation box, they were 6 feet wide. The whole thing was, or were they 8 feet wide? They were 8 feet wide. and because there was 3 of them to make 24-foot room. But they were 8 feet wide, and the ceilings were 8 feet wide. The floors were 8 feet wide. Everything was that dimension. No, Ramiro, there were 6.
There were 4, right?
Nope, it was an 18-foot long room. And the reason I know this is because I called Suncoast, or the rental company, and asked how wide their flatbed trailer was when we were designing. And I said, okay, how wide is it? And they had a trailer that was 7.5 feet wide. And I didn't want to build it 7.5 feet wide because you couldn't get your hands and fingers down there to lift it. Yeah. And so I designed everything 6 feet wide so you'd have some room to spare.
The measurements took into account the flatbed trailer that you're going to rent.
Yeah.
Ahead of time.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a very interesting fact.
If you can't get it there.
Yeah. Is that a lesson you learned from previous builds, or is it something you've known from engineering background?
No, the engineering background doesn't help with anything practical, honestly.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, what I'm getting out of a lot of these stories is that a dyslexic person would not be in a good position to be a project manager on this.
Yeah, you'd have to have a numbers person help you out, but it's a process. I mean, when you're designing something, you have to look at it and say, okay, well, how am I going to get it there?
Yeah.
And if you say, well, I'll cross that bridge when we come to it, then you're just opening the door for future problems. Follow it all the way to the end. Yeah, it's a lot more effort, but it makes it smoother if you follow it forward and then you follow it backwards. And if the design changes, great. It's a lot cheaper to change it on paper than in the field.
Start working with the end in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did I hear a cat?
Yeah.
I didn't realize
there's
a cat
upstairs.
Okay.
You're not allergic, are you?
No.
Oh, that's right. You said you're a cat person.
Yeah.
No, they stay away because the puppy's around and he's passed out.
Evil little fuckers. Okay.
But yeah, so we did the roof and floor and wall pieces 6 feet wide, so that way we could load it on a trailer.
Right. Did you have any curveballs before we got to Playa during the build?
Ramiro, any ideas? Curveballs.
I think Ramiro's on OkCupid.
I'm trying to remember when we put the door up.
He's showing me proof that he's looking at photos for evidence.
Yeah, he's like, whoever that chick is, she was at our build. You should definitely go out with her.
Wow.
So, curveballs? You don't remember any curveballs?
No.
Oh wait, curveball was running out of paper when we printed the. You remember that, Ramiro?
No.
Gluing that stuff down.
Gluing the
paper, and then we put the glue on too early, and it wouldn't stick.
There was some issues with applying the wallpaper to the walls because it would screw us up. Mm-hmm. It would bleed through, and it would make the ink bleed. Then we had to end up with 100-pound bond paper.
Yeah, like glossy paper too.
Yeah.
Glossy on one side.
Yeah.
So I mean, we did go through quite a bit of trial and error for the wallpaper.
As far as the walls and the build of the actual structure, you didn't have any curveballs?
No, we know how to build walls.
Good to know.
Yeah,
I know a guy who might need to hire you for that. I mean, I don't know who's going to pay for it.
What are you talking about? You built half the walls. We were there.
I know. I'm interviewing you.
Of you doing your first skill saw cut.
Yeah, my one and only one.
Is that the only one?
I don't know. I don't remember.
I doubt it. How did you avoid...
It looked great in photos, though. It's going to look greater now. My arms were way better, but...
Redo pictures.
You're going to Photoshop your arms?
We're going to redo the photos with thinner, bigger armed Arash. It'll be great. Yeah, no, it did... I can say it did overall. I mean, the design was there together. You're right. I remember the wallpaper took a few tries. Mm-hmm. We were good with heavy shit that involved saws, not so good with delicate things that could rip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We also sucked at putting the roof on sometimes.
No.
Yeah, it needed persuasion occasionally. But that's what big heavy hammers are for, right? Or just drill new holes and put new hardware in.
Here's a picture I just saw.
Yeah.
It's got like 3 holes. It's like this one.
Yeah.
How do you get people to show up to help build?
Pizza helps.
Pizza.
Pizza.
Yeah. From Costco, preferably.
And that's a lesson I learned from the very first project. Laura,
Damn it! Now I'm craving pizza from Costco.
Laura Andler. At the time it was Laura Dorrance. She fed us every event.
Yeah.
That was on K Maduras, and I always just came away from that just being like, wow, we all busted our ass. We come inside and there's a big old dinner for us. Mm. And we sat around and talked about what we had done. It was awesome. It was great.
Look what you've done.
Yeah. Well, because everybody's at that point kind of cranky and hungry and tired.
Hangry.
Yeah. Everybody's hangry. And so Laura just, it was kind of funny. At the end of the year, she was like, man, I wish I could have helped more, but instead I was cooking. Mm. I was like, yeah, that's totally backwards. You were like one of the most important players, because everybody gets done. And then everybody's not hangry when they leave and they feel like coming back.
Yeah, that is, so that's where I think I really enjoyed working under your leadership on this project, because I think we have very similar philosophies on what goes into a team. And you have an awareness of, like, not everybody is going to be experts at everything, but the piece that everybody brings is just as important as the other piece the other person brings. And so for me, like, that was an important experience, being my first time working on a major build, and being that I have no fucking idea what I'm doing with, like, saws and stuff. But you kept reminding me that, like, what I was doing with, like, the social media and, like, the video work and the photography was important.
It's easy for you.
Yeah. Well, you're right. Because it felt easy to me, I felt like it wasn't enough.
Right.
But that's part of the project, I guess.
Yeah. Well, Angie, she did the Facebook invites. Mm-hmm. And I hope that my current, the president and whoever's my supervisor, the operations manager, don't listen to this, but I don't like answering the email, especially in my personal life.
Yeah.
I mean, Facebook invites. I mean, just paying attention to Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh, geez, when I've got a big project. Yeah. I wouldn't show up to my own party. I just wouldn't have a party on ever and advertise it on Facebook if it weren't for Angie to put it out there. Mm. And so, yeah.
How far in advance for each build day were you sending out invites?
I think we had them out at least a week. Sometimes I tried to stack them up so that people could plan a little bit better.
Right.
And we were doing Saturday and Sunday builds for quite a while. So people had options.
Mm.
But our typical turnout was 6 people.
Yeah.
And so you're not talking about a huge turnout. When we did, like, Carousel up in San Marcos, we had 20 people showing up for builds. That project was just, as far as a community outreach project, that was probably the most successful project ever.
Why is that?
Huh?
Why is that?
So many people touched it. Mm. And
it was dirty.
Yeah, it was. And then we lit it on fire, and now it's clean again. It's sterilized. Yeah. But that project, there was a lot of effort put into outreach, and that's mainly thanks to Brandy's efforts. She's just really good at outreach.
Right. And also, Wonderlust there was also the other San Diego project, Dr. Highest Balls, that was happening at the same time. So people were kind of like, some people were going to help here, some people helping there.
Yeah. And Carousel, we had a project for San Diego.
For all of San Diego.
All of San Diego. And so if anybody wanted to be involved, that was great. And in this case, we were building Wonderlust in our driveway.
Yeah.
And that again goes back to the philosophy I was talking about earlier, where if a donor gives me money or gives Sol Diego money, that it's going towards the project, it's not going towards a comfortable build space.
Right.
And Collab, I love the philosophy, but they weren't very accommodating, nor were they cheap. Mm-hmm. And so if we had a better, more efficient, more accommodating place to go, where do your loyalties lie? Collab or your donors? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an easy question for me.
Yeah.
So Highest Balls was being built at Collab, and I think that probably worked to their advantage with recruiting community. More people probably touched their project than ours because they were in a much more public space. Mm-hmm. But it came at a cost.
Yeah.
And while the whole reason behind building these is to build community, I would rather have a tighter knit community and build something truly great with the money that we're given than spend money on a venue.
Right.
So it's a tough call because one's buying the real estate to be set up for success with community, and the other is sacrificing the venue and hoping that community still shows up.
Yeah.
It's tough.
It worked out. I mean, there was a backyard here and there was beer.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. And yeah, it did work out, and I'm really pleased with it.
So let's get to the travel.
Okay.
I mean, coming up on pretty much 48 hours before we had to leave, we were working on building the cage in order to transfer this thing out there.
Yeah.
Is that something you'd done before, building the cage?
No.
That was something you figured out on the spot?
Yeah.
Okay. Talk about that. What was the idea behind it?
Well, the idea behind it was flatbed trailer because it's cheap and it gives a platform to build our custom transport for our modular pieces.
Right.
And it was a bit of engineering feat in itself. I mean, there were some repairs that happened halfway up to Reno.
Yeah.
Where
you were driving your truck out there with the flatbed connected to it.
Yeah.
How fast were you going?
I was not breaking any speed laws.
Yeah.
We actually may have been breaking the lower limits.
Yeah, the opposite direction. You're going residential speeds.
I was probably towing twice what my vehicle was rated for, and I have a full-size GMC truck with a 5.3 liter V8.
You don't get pulled over for that?
We didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of those passes on the 395, I would gear it down to second gear and crawl up the hill, essentially only letting up to let the transmission cool off. Mm-hmm. By the way, that truck is going to be for sale soon.
We'll put a link up on the blog.
Yeah, that'd be great. Nobody's going to buy it after they know what they've done. But yeah, no, it was mainly just a function of transmission temperature and engine temp. If it got too hot, we slowed down.
Right. And then, how long did it take to get from San Diego to Black Rock City?
It was 16, 17 hours.
Did you stop anywhere?
Yeah, not big stops, but
you didn't sleep
overnight.
Okay.
Didn't we?
Yeah, we did stop. in, was it Lone Pine?
Just before Lone Pine. We didn't make it to Lone Pine.
Okay.
Fabulous Lone Pine.
Fabulous.
I stopped. Let me say something. I stopped. In all these years, I've stopped at places that people are like, "Oh my god, this place is the greatest bread. Oh, you got to stop in this small town. It's got the." And I would eat there and be like, "No, this is not very impressive." I feel like you guys are giving it way bigger of a pass just because, like, oh, you're in a quaint little town. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying I ate at the same place as anybody ate at. Those really good.
They filmed a lot of westerns in Lone Pine. Lone
Pine. I mean, you're named Lone Pine. What else can you do over there?
Big bread.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently not hammock much.
No. I always figure that there was an episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air where like he's saying, well, Sinbad's parents supported him to be a comedian, and Uncle Phil says they named him Sinbad. He had two choices: pirate or comedian. Look at like Lone Pine. I mean, what else are you gonna do, Lone Pine?
Not much.
Shout out to the listeners in Lone Pine. So
people in Lone Pine have an internet connection.
I mean, it's probably dial-up. Let's just spend the rest of the show basing on Lone Pine. Yeah. I'm just gonna start a whole new podcast just talking shit about Lone Pine.
Yeah.
Is that even in California or Nevada?
That's in California.
Lone Pine, California.
Yeah.
How many pines did it have? One.
Yeah.
One pine tree. Yeah. All right. So you get to the Playa. We unload the fucking thing.
Yeah.
At what point did the sobering realization hit that the tents are not high enough?
Oh. Is this where we build more suspense?
No, we're going back to... we're going to tell that part now.
I gotta go pee.
Okay.
I'm totally good now.
Okay. Sorry about the weird pause there.
Was that a faux pas?
Huh?
That was not okay.
No, you're allowed to pee. I just have to pause the recording for a second. Okay, so you get there, and the tents that are around the man that the Wonderlust Arcade is supposed to fit under are not high enough to fit the room.
Yeah.
What do we do?
The second day of the building, we got the walls up.
Right. It was also, by the way, non-stop dust storm, right?
It was.
I do remember that, yeah.
That was the worst year ever.
That year broke multiple people.
Yeah.
For multiple like veterans of Burning Man, be like, nah, I don't want to go back. Not after that year.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't for that reason, but I haven't been back yet.
Yeah.
It was a brutal year.
Yeah. I was cool with it. I think, you know what? I was really excited about the fact that I'd broken my baggage about dust. That year I was just like super extra excited about dust. And so the Playa was like, take all the dust. That's the year that I quit smoking. Because every time you lit a cigarette, it was like smoking half the Playa. Very helpful.
Did you share a tent with Nav on that? Or he just was your neighbor?
Nah, neighbor.
Same Costco structure
over the... We had the Costco structure, and it was like nonstop dust storm, and I remember at one point we got back to our tents, and like everything is covered in dust.
Yeah.
And Nav was like, do you think it would have been helpful if we closed up the side tent part thing? And I laughed at it because I took out my pillow to show him. I held my pillow and I smacked it, and the dust comes off the pillow and just evaporates. So I'm like, I don't think the Costco structure side thing is going to do much to stop the dust from getting in your tent. But, we did it the year after just for fun. But that dust is going everywhere, whether you like it or not.
Yeah. I just remember seeing Nav, and I don't remember what time we came over to see you guys, but he was completely covered in dust. And I was like, that's what Nav looks like when he's going to be like 60. You remember this?
He got all offended.
Yeah.
Really offended until he finally saw himself in the mirror and went, oh, now I get it.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, so, you know what? I didn't remember that part, but now she mentioned it.
Told me later.
I remember
he told so offended that I said that to him.
Yeah.
And then I saw myself.
The funny thing is, I think I said something to him first, and then he's one of my best friends in the world. So that's what happens. The closer you're out with somebody, the more they fucking irritate you. So I told him that. I remember he turned around and looked at me like he was ready to kill me. And then somebody else said the same thing. And he's like, oh, other people are agreeing. It's not just
Arash isn't just an asshole.
Yeah.
Today.
I mean, that may be a fact. But in addition to that, Nav did look like he was a 70-year-old man covered in dust.
He really did.
His beard is all covered in dust and everything.
Yeah.
So what do we do with the tent?
The tent. Who did we talk to? What was her name? There was a DPW person.
Katie or something like that?
No. Katie Hazard was awesome, but she wasn't the one.
She found somebody.
Yeah, she did. I don't remember her name. Anyway.
Somebody from DPW.
Somebody from DPW.
Department of Public Works.
Yes. We talked with them and pitched the idea that, because they had these posts with this little rubber hat. Mm-hmm. Insert dick joke now.
Yeah.
So
you're catching on.
Yeah.
Proud of you.
Have a feature radio.
Yeah.
It's not just my face.
My new co-host.
So we took the little rubber off the post and put it on top of the arcade. There was a short time that we were considering just chopping the top off the arcade, and that really caused a lot of distress to everyone involved because we had worked so hard at this.
Yeah.
So,
and to add, it was a forced perspective room, so like the end of it was shorter anyway.
Yeah. So we got permission from DPW to move all their posts around, reconfigure the post for the tent and those areas that might rub given a windstorm. Who would have thought there might be windstorms that week? We would have an extra rubber stuck to the roof of the arcade that would prevent the roof from ripping.
Right.
Because the last thing we would want to do would be wreck their tent.
Yeah. Ramiro, by the way, I'm sorry, just a side interesting note. He wasn't out there because your instructor would not give you the week off to go to Burning Man. Yeah. Yeah, so we're building this thing and he's not out there.
You didn't miss much. This whole thing where we came up with the solution to move the posts around, it was so stressful because, DPW has this reputation of being very rigid, very their way or the highway. We built this city, fuck off, ruin your own city type thing. And so when we proposed these ideas, we were 100% ready to be shot down harshly.
Yeah.
And what we encountered was very supportive DPW crew that said, well, show us what you want to do. And we did, and they bought it. And so that was awesome. But this happened over like a 6-hour period. And so there was a lot of that sitting around. I was looking at photographs that Abraxas posted on her whatchamacallit account. And it was a lot of pictures of us sitting around.
Yeah. I remember that's when I did a lot of my smoking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was a really stressful time because, the whole crew was there and we're like, oh shit, are we going to take a Sawzall to all the work that we just did and ruin the effect and everything? So,
yeah. Meanwhile, by the way, I think New York was like to our left.
Yeah.
Just plowing away. They were like a fucking assembly line.
Well, actually, they were 2 spots over.
Right.
The spot directly to our left never showed up. And New York took part of their spot, and we took a little bit of it just to stretch our legs with these posts.
Right.
And it just worked out.
You're right, because the posts, that whole thing might not have really worked out that way had that other project shown up.
Yep.
And been right there in that space.
Yeah.
Wow, that's funny how that worked out.
Yeah. And we had Foxcarn to the right of us because we had the arcade. Yeah. Then we had the Oregon, which had a lot of great traffic. And then just to the right of that was Foxcarn.
They were from Thailand? Taiwan.
Yeah.
And they also had German builders as a part of a Taiwan project.
A lot of those things have weird collaborations, but
weird
hey, it worked.
Germans.
But that was one where they had to chop a full like 18 inches off the top of theirs because same story. They were on the end, and so the tent got shorter.
Right.
And so during that 6 hours that we're pitching alternatives to cutting our piece up, we're watching them cut their piece up.
I remember that was actually a really nice moment where Dave brought out Rice Krispie treats. And watching a German eat a Rice Krispie treat for the first time in his life. And he just like bites into it and he's chewing it and he's got this look in his eyes and he's just like, this is what Americans eat. He was so satisfied.
That's your accent again.
Was that an accent? That
was the same one. Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is what the Americans eat. Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, it's real good Rice Krispie treats. Yeah.
You have two accents.
I'm here for like the techno, yes. So projects up. Lights go. Was there any issues with electrical?
No, DC was in charge of that. It went smooth. Yeah. Oh, we had it, and that's another cool thing is electrical.
Connectivity. DPW provided all the electricity, right?
Yeah. But then we had the power supply in the back. We had to protect it from the dust because the dust.
Right.
So we had a box to protect the power supply, which has fans and has to cool.
Right.
And then the controllers. But we had plenty of extra hands there to run wire. And that's something most volunteers can do, Can you run wire from A to B and staple it down? I think you and Nav did a bunch of that, didn't you?
I don't remember.
No.
Nav did a bunch of it.
Yeah.
I know he was up there. I think he and Bob did most of the top.
He and Bob? Yeah, Bob was out there helping a bunch too.
He was up on.
We didn't see Bob a lot during the build.
Yeah.
But he was on Playa and he helped a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing too. Like people that are there for build and then we don't really see them out there and then it flips a little bit. The people that are out there the whole time.
Yeah. And that was kind of an exceptional case because Bob's proven himself to be a great asset and worker and leader previous years. And so when we ran into this situation where we had some people back out at the last second,
people that couldn't make it to the burn?
People that couldn't make it early.
Okay, yeah.
So we had huge helps during the build, during the year.
Right.
And then they just simply can't get the time off to get up there a week early. It's a huge investment of time. In addition to what we'd already done. And so, other people can step up. They have the time off. They can do it. So, yeah, it's, you take what you can get.
Yeah. Did any part of the build, other than the tent, not go according to plan? Or once we figured out the tent, it was all good to go? Thoughts?
Well, the first night we got there, Angie and Tamara locked the keys in the truck.
Right, that's when you slept out.
But the tequila was outside the cabin.
Yeah, we thought ahead. We packed the tequila in the back of the truck. So we made a tent from a tarp that was covering the load off to the side between the trailer and the truck. And we had tequila to keep us warm. And the three of us just, it's like,
We had the sleeping bags too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had a tarp tent, or a tarp cover with tequila, and then just sleeping bags on the playa.
Yeah.
For the
first night. It was a gorgeous night.
It was. It was a good night. But it was one of those...
It was the last gorgeous night.
Yeah. But it was one of those things where I think we rolled in at probably...
2 in the morning?
No, it was daylight. We just got there. It was dusk.
Right. We didn't get on site till really late in the morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it was dark. There was nobody to go. We couldn't go find rangers because they were...
Well, yeah, because we were camped with Tarwater, and then we had the other camp with most of the build crew.
Right.
That was another lesson with Starfish, where we had a dedicated San Diego core camp.
Yeah.
And I discovered I love my crew. I don't want to camp with them.
Is that why you camped Tarwater and?
Well, I've been with Tarwater
somewhere else
every year that I've been on Playa.
Yeah.
Except for the one that I stayed with my crew, and there was I think half the crew broke up with their significant others within the first 2 days of being on Playa.
Yeah.
And it was just such an uncomfortable place where I was just like, Tarwater, can I sleep on your couch? I was that guy.
Yeah.
I slept on their couch. And I was like,
it was a nice couch. I took a nap on that couch at some point.
I think most people have spent a night on Tarwater's couch.
Yeah.
I know we've fed a bunch of people.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it was, so we were looking, the reason we were not locked out of our vehicle right next to everybody else was, we were looking for Tarwater's camp.
So the thing goes up, and then there's kind of like an unveiling night under the man where like it's kind of that they take the caution tape down and everybody's invited to come out and check it out and it's good to go. And
did you see AK all in white?
Yes. Yeah, I remember AK all in white.
He was so proud.
He was there all night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was probably the highlight of my entire burn.
Yeah. Seeing AK in all white.
AK so excited about all the people that love to play the video games and love the piece.
Fully dressed up, gloves and everything.
White glove. He was in a white tux, white patent leather shoes, white gloves. He was just looking sharp. Yeah. But out there all night. He was like, Dave, one machine has gone into sleep mode all night. He was so proud. Yeah, and he should have been. He kicked ass.
Got a lot of traffic. There was people in there constantly playing games, exploring.
And that was a proof of philosophy. And this is a philosophical difference that we had, our crew had, versus a lot of the other booths around the man, was that we believe that Burning Man doesn't sleep.
Yeah.
So your destination needs to be able to entertain, whether it's manned or not.
Right.
It needs to be entertaining all hours of the night.
Wonderlust never closed.
Never closed.
Yeah, but there were other projects under the man that did close after a certain hour because they weren't manned anymore. And
so the whole idea of performance art, which everybody loves performance art, but the downside of performance art is performers sleep.
Right.
I mean, you can only do drugs for so long. Eventually, they sleep.
Yeah.
And our place was participant powered, and that's the whole philosophy behind Burning Man is we don't have headlining bands, we don't have entertainers, we have a participant driven event. Mm-hmm. And so if you are up, it's 3 a.m, you have a place to go and you can entertain yourself. You can entertain the people around you. I think it was I respectfully disagree that you need performance art at the man to make it a real thing.
That was part of their call, I want to say, for Under the Man, right? That they wanted performance art?
They wanted performance art, and I think that was backwards from what I understand Burning Man to be. Yeah. And so they were stubborn, and we did it our way anyway.
Because you did the proposal, and they're like, "Yeah, we're fine with this." Like, they knew what they were approving.
You're right.
So it's almost like they kind of requested it, but they also are respectful of, like, they like variety.
Yeah,
they like that there's different people bringing different shit. They're like, you know what? Fine, this one doesn't need to have performance.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like the organ, for example.
Right.
Anybody that can play an organ could, or any amateur,
right,
play the organ and entertain people.
Yeah.
you don't need a pianist or an organist there to... Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Did I just say penis? But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I
fully
felt
agree.
like San Diego, we brought a certain philosophy, or at least one of our pieces did, and
because the year before, where Bob and I worked on the Souk project, it was the
travel agency.
Yeah. Which Abite travel agency, Abite, I don't know how to pronounce it to this day. So yeah, that one, like it was only performance art. I mean, it was basically just a desk, and the idea was that it was a travel agency, and the people that are manning the desk can send you to different places. I wrote all these like improv prompts for people that they had a lot of fun with. But that was the problem, is that like it was so stressful scheduling people to be there. And not stressful because people, like, everybody was willing to help, but you're at the burn. So you can't just, like, shoot a text message. You have to, like, get on your bike and ride over to camp. And if they're not there, you're going to have to come back and look for them again. And, you know, it was horrible. But Wonderlust was the absolute complete opposite of that. It functioned completely on its own. Anybody could hop in there and start playing it. It was up all week. It was fine.
The Zoltar booth?
I'm pretty sure at some point I went by it and somebody was taking a nap in there.
Sure.
It was shelter. The dust immediately destroyed that optical illusion for the roof and the floor.
That's true, but the wallpaper worked.
Yeah, the wallpaper worked great. Yeah. What was the biggest lesson you think that you learned on this project?
That's a good question. Ramiro, you got any good lessons?
I mean, Ramiro had a fuck ton of lessons, I'm sure. Oh, you know what? By the way, you got there on like final last weekend.
I got there Friday.
Yeah, he got there on Weekend Warrior weekend. All the LA fashion burners came, and then Ramiro and Sam.
Both in the back of a Volkswagen Golf.
Yeah. I got to ride back with him.
Don't bring a Volkswagen Golf.
Golf to the Playa, yeah. No, I want to know if you guys had any lessons learned from the Wonderlust that other artists and builders could potentially, like, what is a piece of advice that you would hand out based on your experience with this? I guess it doesn't have to be a lesson learned.
If you see your crew struggling in the dust, don't just stand around. Like, definitely go help out.
That wasn't a lesson you learned, though, right? Because you weren't just standing around.
I was for like the first 10 minutes, like not being able to breathe and shit. And eventually I'm like, I'll just jump in, right?
You'd just gotten there like the day before, though. Like you basically got there to see it, and then it was taken apart. Yeah.
The teardown crew went really well, though. Yeah. But that was in the middle of a dust storm.
Right.
That was brutal.
That was an aggressive dust storm.
Didn't stop people from smoking.
No.
It
did stop Arash.
It did stop me afterwards.
He sucked down half the Playa and decided to stop.
Yeah. Just all in my mouth. My final cigarette.
Wait,
all the Playa.
In your mouth.
Just sucking up all of it.
Does that count as a penis?
That's why I cleared up the next night.
I am a big guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We've heard that.
Yeah, my very last cigarette was that sunrise burn night.
Yeah. I don't know. Lesson learned. I'm guessing it's just being flexible. I mean, because when that whole tent thing happened, man, that was just crushing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, the flexibility is, I think, everything. Having a plan is a great start. A plan is a good place to start. And then there's 26 letters in the alphabet. So you have plan B, plan C, plan D. It's a long way to go to the end. Burning Man happens.
Yeah. So bring it back to San Diego. What happens to it then?
It's been sitting in the side yard. I'd love to put it together and burn it somewhere. Not so much the video game console, like the games themselves, but the room. The room is all very flammable. Not lately, it's been raining, but
let's do this. Let's put together an event.
All right. Give me a trailer before I sell the truck, and Well, you know what? I can scrounge a trailer.
Okay. We can discuss this off air.
Truck we can do it with.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
Do we have any other projects that we want to burn?
Cabina.
Yeah.
Cabina could burn?
Cabina.
Yeah.
I'd like to burn ISIS.
ISIS
Still
is
have
there?
it?
Yeah, well, Paul has it up at Palomar. He loaned us his garage up at Palomar.
Throw all the shit in the fire.
Throw it all under the pyramid.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
I wonder if we can burn shit at Perky de Mayo.
It's in Lancaster. Why not?
But then again, like, we don't know what's going on with that property. We're Perky Parts, which is the camp that we camped with and took Cabino with. They're having a thing, Cinco de Mayo. Maybe we could set it out there and burn the fuck up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you let a slumming tar water person or Angie and me persons?
I mean, Angie can
join
come.
you?
I don't know about you though.
Damn it.
Angie
I'll
for
make sure he
sure.
wears a skirt.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Make sure he shaves his legs this time. I mean, good lord.
Says the Persian.
Yeah. I'm like the least hairy Middle Eastern guy you'll ever meet. There's like nothing here.
That's not saying much.
No.
The least hairy Persian guy?
The least hairy Persian. Yeah, Persians, I mean, because they wax. I just don't actually grow much hair. I'm terrible in many, many ways. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Wow.
Thank you, Dave, for telling us the whole story of Wonderlust Arcade. I dug it. I had a really great experience building it. Definitely, I mean, for me at least, it set the bar pretty high on what I expect out of a build. So it was a great experience. I think everybody got a lot out of it, and one of my favorite things that we got out of it is Ramiro.
Yeah, and the last build, Cabina, was a big success, right?
Yeah, well,
That's what I've heard.
That's going to be another episode. We're going to go through that one. We got a Ramiro on that one, and then Tori, who is now our associate producer, was also somebody who I pretty much got to spend time with and meet at Wonderlust. So all these relationships come out of
that's what it's
these experiences. Yeah. At the end of the day, I feel like that's the ultimate payment. You know,
it's not so much the burn; it's all the build events that happen up to the burn. For me, I mean, the way I explain it to a lot of people is the burn is just a deadline.
Yeah. This
is a very project manager way of looking at it.
Right.
The burn's the deadline.
Yeah.
But all of these relationships and all this work goes in beforehand. And that's where you really get to know all the people locally. Then you go to the burn and you go crazy and do whatever you do. But yeah, I mean, it's
you set your sights on a North Star. It doesn't mean you're going to stop, but yeah, you have that deadline, and you're going to meet that come hell or high water.
Yeah,
come hell or tar water.
Right.
And that is what brings people together. That's when you learn the most about yourself. That is when you build these amazing relationships, and ultimately that's what the project is for. And that's a lot of the
exactly what it's for.
Yeah. I feel like, listeners who are considering building something, I would say, fucking do it. And don't worry if it's not perfect. Apply, try to make it happen, try to get a thing out there. Yeah. You will learn more about yourself. You will build relationships. And hopefully the worst thing that happens is, a chipped nail.
There are worse things.
There's much worse things, for sure. Safety third.
That's true.
All right. Thanks, guys. I'm going to stop recording. Hey, new episodes are up on the first and third Wednesdays of the month at some point during the day. This one went up super late in the day. We are on multiple podcasting platforms such as Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and Spreaker, among many others. We're also on iHeart Radio now. If you want to listen to the show, it is not hard to find. The Burner podcast movement is made possible due to the efforts of various contributing producers, as well as our regular staff, which include our network music editor, Navjit Sarna, who also produces Burner Podcast Presents Alkaline, producer Hip Hop Eddie Rangel, our newest addition, associate producer Tori Massey, contributing producer Super Suze, recording engineer Freckle, chief Playa scientist and online editor Ramiro Martinez, special project manager Paul McCarthy, network executive producer Meg King, who produced the majority of our earliest shows. And you, dear listener, our intermission music is by Duckman. Check out his music over at duckmansd.bandcamp.com. The Burner Podcast theme song is America's Horse with No Name remix, produced by Joe Man. Check out his music over at soundcloud.com/DJ Joe Man. So until next time, love and light and all that other crap. Good night.